Today the topic is synapse. So what is the synapse? We are going to discuss that one. So first one, synapse is the functional gap. Very important word. You should have to remember a functional junction or gap. Functional junction or gap. Okay, between neurons. Between neurons. These words you should have to remember. Functional junction or gap between the neurons. It is the point. Next point. It is the point. Okay. Point of contact between the terminal branches of the axon of one neuron with the dendrite okay, dendrites of another neuron. Okay, the terminal of axon and dendrites of another neuron. So here, next point, no cytoplasmic connection, nothing, no cytoplasmic connection will be there between them. And even though it is transfer the impulses, even though it transmit the impulses, okay, or synapses, transmit the impulses in synapse. What do you call, that chemical synapse, chemical way. Next, axon terminal comes. How axon terminal okay, in close proximity of the dendron terminal. This word you have to remember. Okay, simple. Dendron terminal of the next neuron. Same point only, next neuron. So axon terminal will form presynaptic membrane. Okay, presynaptic knob. This is the point you should have to remember. And the dendrite terminal forms postsynaptic membrane or depression will be there. So narrow in between this narrow fluid filled space is there. That is called synaptic cleft. Okay, synaptic cleft. Next one, there is vesicles are there. Okay, in that synaptic knob, synaptic vesicles are present. They secretes neurotransmitters like very well, acetylcholine. Remember this name, neurotransmitters, acetylcholine. So what we have to remember is the receptors, neurotransmitters. These are called what you call neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine is there. Next, most important point what we have to remember is impulse across is the impulse, okay, across the impulse across the synaptic, across the synapse, and passes into the dendron of the other neuron. Okay, so only one direction only. The direction is only one direction only. The synapse will be passed. Impulse will travel. One direction only. Impulse will travel. Okay. Okay. So this is the important. This is the thing you should have to remember. Okay. Now listen very carefully. What is the synapse? This is the point we are discussing. Synapse is the functional gap. What is a synapse? It's a functional junction or gap. Suppose this is one neuron, what you call cell body, dendrites. Okay, like this dendrites will be there. This is axon. Axon have what you called synaptic knobs. This one and another another cell body, cyton. This is a cyton. This is a dendrite. Okay, this between what you call in between these two, what you call this is the synaptic knob, and this functional gap, this is the gap only called what you call synapse. This is one axon and this is dendrite of another axon. So this gap is only called synapse. So now the impulse is coming like this, coming plus minus plus like this, the coming to this one, and again it will go to another neuron, and last it will reach, you know very well, it will go to the brain. So that is only synapse. So come on, functional gap. Synapse is the functional junction or gap between the neurons. It is point of contact between the terminal branches of the axon of one neuron with the dendrite of another neuron. So what is that one? Terminal branches of the axon. So this is a terminal branch of axon and one dendrite of another. So this is a dendrite, this is the terminal branch. In between this only gap of the junction is only called synapse. Even though gap is there, but the impulse will be travel. That is the only important point. There is no cytoplasmic connection. In between these two, no cytoplasmic connection. Okay, this is one more important point. But even though no cytoplasmic connection, transmit the impulse. Synapses, chemical synapses will be means some chemicals, acetylcholine, neurotransmitters will be there. That kind of neurotransmitters going on. No? That's why this is called chemical synapse also. What do you call? Chemical synapse. Axon terminal in close proximity of the dendrite terminal of the next neuron. Very close. This is the axon. This is the dendrite. Very close each other. Okay. Very close terminal. Axon terminal presynaptic nerve. The axon terminal, which one is there? That is called presynaptic nerve. Dendrite terminals, dendrite terminals of another neuron postsynaptic depression. They will forms the dendrites of another neuron forms the postsynaptic depression. And narrow, the fluid filled space. The fluid filled space only called what is called synaptic cleft. The synaptic cleft contains synaptic vesicles. They releases the neurotransmitters acetylcholine. The impulse across synapse and passes into the dendrite of neuron. So only one direction only impulse will travel. See the picture, you will understand. Very, very important. First, what you have to remember is this is the axon. Axon terminal is called synaptic knob. What do you call this particular part? Synaptic knob, axon terminal. It have vesicles. These vesicles secretes the, you know very well, neurotransmitters by endocytosis. Means one process will be there, they will release. These endocytosis, these are the synapse. This is called mitochondria. This is called synaptic vesicle. This is axon. So this total structure, what I said, presynaptic knob, the space without any cytoplasmic gap, without any cytoplasm connection. So this gap only called what is called synaptic cleft. So these are the chemo. These are the very, very important. If these receptors not there, again the impulse will not travel. But what is this? This is a dendrite. This is the dendrite of another neuron. Axon terminal of one neuron, dendrite of another neuron. So the dendrite of another neuron forming what? Postsynaptic membrane. So presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, this space all together we called, what do you call this, all synaptic cleft. So these chemoreceptors very important. Now plus minus like this, the impulse is coming like this, coming and releasing the neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are traveling the impulse. What they will do, travel the impulse and connect it to these receptors. It will be go and connected to another dendrite, another axon. Okay, another axon, dendrite, like that it will be go, what do you call here, this is dendrite. So axon, dendrite, axon, dendrite, axon, dendrite, like that it will reaches, you know which one, the brain. So impulse will be travel like this. These are, I mean, even this gap is there between these two also, the impulse is traveling. That is a greatness we have to remember. So this kind of arrangement only called impulse transmission across the synapse. What is the neat bit here to remember is, if chemoreceptors not there, impulse will travel. No, impulse will not travel if chemoreceptors are not there. Then synaptic vesicles release the which kinds of neurotransmitters? These are the neurotransmitters. What are the examples of neurotransmitters? I said acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. So this is the functional gap. Presynaptic membrane or presynaptic knob, synaptic cleft, postsynaptic membrane and synaptic space all togetherly called, what is called, synaptic cleft. So where most important thing is, you should have to remember chemoreceptors. These receptors only will take these vesicles, release the neurotransmitters, even the space. Because of these chemoreceptors, these neurotransmitters will go and bind here and impulse will be travel like this, and it last reaches the brain or effector organ. So this particular part is only called, what you have to remember, presynaptic, postsynaptic, synaptic space, vesicles, neurotransmitters like acetylcholine, this will be there. So this will be called the functional gap. This functional gap is only called, what we call, synapse. What we call synapse. It's a functional gap. The next thing is, what we have to discuss is types of neuron. Next thing to remember is types of neuron. These things you should have to remember. Types of, next topic is types of neurons. Types of neurons. There are three types of neurons. Three types of neurons. Three types of neurons. Number one, sensory neurons. Sensory neurons. Number two, motor neurons. Number three, relaying neurons. What we called relaying neurons. Relaying neurons. It is called relating neurons. Relaying neurons. So first one, sensory neurons, motor neurons, relaying neurons are there. So first one, sensory neurons. We are going to discuss about sensory neurons. Sensory neurons. These often, first, what is the sensory neurons? Means we have sense organs, right? From these sense organs, the information is taking, suppose impulse is there. So that impulse from sense organs to it reaching the brain by the help of which one? These sensory neurons. So that point you have to remember. So sense organs, where these sensory neurons are present in the sense organs and receive stimulants by their dendrites. Receives stimulus, okay, by their dendrites, by their what you call dendrites. These have the dendrites or not? These neurons have the dendrites. No, from these dendrites they receive the stimulus. So toward the where they will receive the stimulus and transport to which one? Central nervous system through their axon. How they will be? Through the axons, dendrites to axon, axon to central nervous system. Central nervous system means you know very well. What are the central nervous system? Brain and spinal cord. So they will take the information, send the information. The next one, what is there? Those are motor neurons. Another type of neurons are motor neurons. What motor neurons? They axon sensory neurons into central nervous system. These transmit the impulses. CNS. They transmit the impulses. Which one? The motor neurons. Central nervous system to the impulses will takes to the which one? The effector organs. Which one? Effector organs. Effector organs like muscle or what you call glands, muscle or glands. This point you should have to remember. Okay, next one, relaying neurons. Relaying neurons. What is called? Relaying neurons. These are connector neurons. Connector neurons. What is called? Connector neurons. These occur in the central nervous system. Links between, these are the links between what you call, these are links between sensory and motor neurons. Sensory and motor neurons. Okay, sensory and motor for distance, for distant transmission of nerve impulse, of nerve impulses. Okay, they are where these are present. These are also present in central nervous system, means brain and spinal cord. So like this, these are the nerves are there, and there are receptors are present. So receptors, very very important. What are the receptors? 5 receptors are there. How many sense organs? 5 sense organs. In the 5 sense organs, 5 sensory receptors. Okay, sense organs, 5 sense receptors are 5 sensory receptors are present. Okay, sensory receptors. Number 1, photoreceptors. Photoreceptors means they will take the information, light information. Then phonoreceptors for what? Sound. Okay, next, gustatory receptors for what? For taste, present in the tongue. Next, olfactory receptors. Olfactory receptors. These olfactory receptors present in the nose. Okay. Next, thigmoreceptors. Thigmoreceptors. These thigmoreceptors will be there in the for the touch point of view. So you are feeling touch, no? Like that. These are the receptors are present. These all receptors receives the impulse and will send to the information to the which one? These all sends the information to brain. Okay. So now what we are discussing is the types of neuron. What do you call the types of neurons? What is a neuron? You know very well. Structural and functional unit of the nervous system. There are three types of neurons are there. Number one, sensory neurons. Number two, motor neurons. Number mixed neurons also there. So these are relaying neurons. Okay. First, sensory neurons. Sensory neurons will take the impulse. From outside. Okay, take the impulse from outside through the sense organs. Okay, it will go to brain in the sense that is because of sensory neurons. Because of sensory neurons. The sense organs receives the stimulus by their dendrites. How they will be dendrites of these neurons have dendrites, you know very well. Through the dendrites will take the information, axon will pass the information. So the sense organs receives the stimulus by their dendrites and sends to which one? Axon. Axon to it will go to which one? Central nervous system. What is the central nervous system? Components of the central nervous system, you know very well. Brain and spinal cord. Brain and spinal cord. These two are the very important central nervous system components. Brain is the relay center, you know very well. Then motor neurons. Motor neurons means which after brain analysis, brain will sense the information. So brain is, so CNS means here the brain too, the impulse is traveling through effector in the sense because of which one, you know, because of motor neurons. Here one neat bit I want to tell. So you know polio like diseases are permanent. Why? Because the virus once polio virus infects these motor neurons, again motor neurons will not be formed. You know neurons cannot involved in the cell division, no neurons are forming. So that is the reason if the polio neurons means polio virus especially affecting which neurons? Motor neurons. Motor means which will take the impulse from brain to effector organs. So that motor neurons getting damaged because of that polio virus. So that's why it will be what you call the polio like diseases are permanent. In the neat bit they will ask the questions why polio like diseases are permanent. Because the polio like diseases are permanent, the polio virus is infecting the motor neurons. Because of that, the polio like disease is permanent. Like that you should have to mention. Why they won't show the neurons won't show the which one, you know very well. Cell division will not happen in the neurons. So that is the reason permanent diseases like polio. Then relaying neurons. These relaying neurons also present in the central nervous system. They are also called connector neurons. The links between the sensory and motor neurons. So mixed also we can say. You know what is that? The links connects the sensory and motor neurons for distant transmission of nerve impulses. So the distance is there in the sense the distance transmission of nerve impulses will be takes place by the help of which one? Relaying neurons. These are the links between the sensory and motor neurons. Then this is about the types of these are the points about types of neurons. Next come to receptors. There are, you know very well, we are feeling sense, you are feeling smell, you are feeling touch, you are feeling sound, everything you are feeling. How you are gaining that information, how you are receiving that information, in the sense in the sense organs, you know very well, sensory receptors are present. Because of those sensory receptors only you are gaining the information. What are the sensory receptors? Number one, for example, in your eye, where this photosensory receptor is present in your eye, photoreceptors are there. So those receptors will take the light and will send to the brain through optic nerve. So that is different. So nerves only. Next, you want to listen the sound. So sound where in the ear. So in the ear, you will have one receptors, some one kind of receptors called phonoreceptors. These phonoreceptors, what they will do, they receives the sound and sends to the ear. So these all are sensory sense. They are taking the sense. That's why we are calling sensory receptors. Then gustatory receptors. Gustatory receptors means what? Taste. These are present in our tongue. In the tongue region, they will be present. So you are feeling different sweet, sour, bitter, like that. You are feeling different taste. No, tastes are not. That is because of the help of receptors called gustatory receptors. These gustatory receptors present on the tongue. Next one is olfactory receptors. These olfactory receptors are present on the nose. Okay, so in the present in the nose, you are feeling smell, right? Because of which one, either good smell or bad smell, by the help of this one olfactory receptors. Last one, many more receptors are there in the skin, but here I am telling only one type of receptor, that is called thigmoreceptors. These thigmoreceptors related to touch. They will feel the sense of the touch, so they will be present on the skin. So these are all receptors, photoreceptors, and what we call phonoreceptors, gustatory receptors, olfactory receptors, thigmoreceptors. They will take the information and sends to which one, brain means, component of which one, central nervous system. So these are the main points about the receptor systems. So next concept is the reflex actions. So this one we will be discuss in the tomorrow, but I will give little information about what we call the reflex actions. How many types of reflex actions, what is reflex actions, you have to be listen. So reflex actions, next concept is reflex actions. Okay, reflex action or reflex actions. So suppose specific change in the environment, a specific change in the environment happened. If specific change in the environment, what will happen? Okay, evokes, okay, evokes an appropriate response. Appropriate response. Okay, appropriate response in the form of movement. In the form of movement, you will feel in the form of movement or action in living organisms. In living organisms only called reflex actions. Okay, specific change in environment you can feel. So carefully, these organisms are carefully, such movements carefully controlled. Such movements, okay, of such movements are carefully controlled. So carefully controlled by, very well, nervous system. Okay, so the actions of reflections, there are two types of reflex actions. Number one, very well, the voluntary and involuntary actions. Voluntary and involuntary actions are there. There are two types of reflex actions, voluntary and involuntary. So for example, what are the, so blinking of eyes, for example I am telling, blinking of eyes. Suppose any dust particle is falling, what you will do, blinking of eyes is one kind of reflex action. Okay, next, sneezing. Okay, sneezing. Okay, coughing, like this, different types of actions you will do. Suppose any hot object, if any touch your hot object, you will withdraw your hand. Okay, you will withdraw your hand. So such kind of reactions are called what you called the reflex actions. Come on, listen. If any specific change in environment that evokes an appropriate response in the form of movement or action. In the form of movement or action. Suppose hot object, very hot. So the change in the environment that evokes the appropriate response in the form of movement or action. In living organisms only, reflex action. Sudden. Such movements are carefully controlled by nervous system. There are two types of reflex actions. What are those? Voluntary and involuntary. For example, involuntary means, you know, when you touch the hot object, you will be what you called, you will withdraw your hand. And voluntary means when you hear what you called national anthem, you will feel respect and you will stand the you will stand by hearing national anthem. What you will do, you will stand and you will give the respect to the flag or that national spirit. That is called that kind of movements, that kind of standing because of the national anthem is called voluntary actions. Or if you touch any hot object, you will withdraw hand from that, that is called involuntary actions. So these all are the reflex actions. Some more examples: blinking of eyes, when dust falling in the eye, or light, force light is there, in the sense we will blink the eyes. And sneezing and coughing, these are the best examples of the reflex action. So thank you very much, children. So next one, what is the structural and functional unit of reflex action, and what are the components of reflex arc? So these all contents we will discuss in the next class. Thank you very much, children. Thank you.